Good afternoon, everyone. I am Stephen Drew from the Architecture Social and head of architecture at McDonald Company. And I am joined by William Gaines here, who is an architectural assistant and someone that my mum has probably seen on TV while she's watching Coronation Street. William, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, we're here digitally, and you've made time to see me on Black Friday. So first important question, have you bought anything in the sales yet?
Not today, but I did actually buy a pair of wellies the other day because of...
You bought a pair of wellies?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it is the season to be having wellies, but I mean, wellies...
they're working from home in the country. I think it was like a necessary purchase.
Fair enough. Well, for anyone that hasn't seen you yet, just to put it in context, the reason I said that my mum has probably seen you while watching Coronation Street is that lately you were in an advert, isn't it? And we'll jump to that a bit later. But just so anyone knows, your background, you are an architectural assistant. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so do you want to let everyone know a little bit about when you started studying architecture and your transition to architectural practice?
I guess, so just turned 26 and I started thinking about wanting to be an architect probably in 2010 at school. And I think it was an interesting time because speaking to people when you're choosing a career and everything like that, I at the time didn't have maths or art. So I don't know whether it's a thing that other people have experienced, but I was told that I probably wouldn't be able to get into architecture.
Me too. It's same thing. Same thing. I did geography, not maths, and the career advisor said no chance.
So I maybe that's just an old school kind of train of thought, but I think it's probably changing. But at the time I was like, oh, that's a shame because it's something I'm really interested in and kind of would like to go down that avenue. So I kind of set to about looking at maybe different routes into it and did a bit of work experience with some local architects. I say local to me, which will have been Skipton in North Yorkshire. I don't know if do you know there?
I've been to Yorkshire. I've not particularly been to Skipton. Skipton.
I think it's known as the gateway of the Yorkshire Dales. So that's where the journey started for me, really. And managed to get a couple of weeks work experience with like a local architect there. And as I say, that went really well and kind of enjoyed my time there. It kind of cemented this idea of, yes, it's a career I'd like to pursue. And then I just had to sort out my A-level choices and the route into it. I say it was a bit of a rocky start because I did well in my AS levels, which kind of got me places at half decent universities, but then didn't do too well in my A2s, which kind of put a kibosh in those plans. So then it was kind of back to the drawing board. And I think it was my parents at the time, they noticed that the same firm that I'd done some work experience at, they were looking for an architectural technician actually at the time. To do like a part-time course that Leeds Met at the time. I think it's now Leeds Beckett. It is Leeds Beckett, yeah. So it's like a part-time 5-year integrated course with them. And obviously I kind of had my heart set on architecture rather than architectural technology. So I went back to them and said, one, could have a bit more work experience in the year of finishing school. And two, kind of at the end of that, that went really well. And we kind of posed the question I posed the question. I said, the same university do a part-time course for the architectural course as well. don't think anyone ever did it, because it's like making the longest course even longer at the time. So I kind of set to on a 6-year voyage to get my undergrad, which was a bit of an experience. I think there was only 2 of us on that part-time course, surrounded by 60 odd full-timers, which it was really good fun. But I think anyone who studies part-time probably knows just the difficulty of that work life and university life balance.
It's interesting because I did it full time, and I spoke to 1 or 2 people recently, because you've got these new architectural apprentices courses coming, and I do think, as like you said, it's a complete trade-off, because on one hand you're doing it part time. The course is at a slower pace, but I assumed, did you because I can see that you work at Bowman Riley. Did you decide to work in an architectural practice while working part time on the course, or how did you go about it?
Yes, so this was at a time before the architectural apprenticeships were kind of a thing, and the Bowman Riley, the firm that I worked for, they basically said, look, we really like you, and we've never done this kind of before with an architect rather than a technologist, but we would like to kind of offer you the same support that we do for them, in terms of kind of, we'll pay you a bit of a salary. I mean, it wasn't a huge one to someone who's just left school on a part-time course. But it was, I mean, at the time, to an 18-year-old, it was, I was really pleased.
Yeah.
And then, they just they've sponsored me all the way through. And I've actually, as of last year, kind of signed up to the architectural apprenticeship that came through down in London. I had a bit of relocation after that.
Amazing. It's going to be. You're going to bring your wellies. You're going to take your wellies down to London now, isn't it?
Well, I don't need no use for them there. It's all concrete jungle, isn't it?
It's true. Well, they can be handy now and then. I can remember once I had some suede shoes, and then the moment it started raining, they were ruined. So your wellies will come. They will come in use. But that's really interesting. So good on you, actually. And I kind of feel that there are definite advantages to the apprentice scheme and working part-time. As in, what I would argue is that all that experience that you've got now, actually, we touched upon it briefly before us chatting, but you have 7 years in industry effectively. And I still believe that, okay, while you're not working full-time in an architectural practice, my belief is that you are still there every week. You're still soaking it up. And compared to your counterparts, which are working full-time, in an architectural, in a university course, you're in the practice, so that will help. Because I had 1 or 2 friends while I was studying who were working part-time in an architectural practice, and compared to me, which was like pie in the sky ideas and stuff, I felt like their approach was a little bit more grounded, whereas maybe mine was a bit more, how do I say, naive. I had one friend that I always tease me and be like, Steve, how is that going to stand up? And I was like, Ryan, you're just gonna let me try. You're gonna let me go for it. But he's like, no, seriously.
Worry about that later. That's a problem for tomorrow, kind of thing. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it kind of gave me that balance between the real world and also letting your kind of creativity flow at university. I think there's times where I was kind of at work doing toilet layouts for Morrison's refits, and then going to university and designing kind of pneumatic analog banks that run off the London Tube network and things like that. So, it was nice to have that kind of escape once a day, and then you take some learnings from university and you bring it back to the office, and then you take some learnings from the office and you bring it into uni. Kind of like all your professional studies modules and your tech modules were always just like high marks because there was everyone in the office to sort of bounce off.
Yeah, I guess you were that guy that got bombarded. I would have totally bombarded you with questions on detailing because that would have been handy. It's really interesting though, because you mentioned briefly, you talked about the practice when they met you. They were really they were like, we like you and we're going to try and work out this part-time thing. What was quite interesting, I was speaking to a member of our community as well on the Architecture Social called Emily Foster. And when she was applying to be an architectural apprentice, you almost had to teach the architectural practice a little bit how to go about it. Cause like, as you said, they're not familiar. But when I was looking for a part one position, it was the 2009 recession. So I actually had to spend a lot of time, and I sent a lot of CVs all the way around London. I think I sent something, gosh, God knows, but I think it was between 700, 800, 900 CVs. Yeah. I'd be really interested to know how you went about your search at the time looking for a job, because you're in Skipton, and I can see through LinkedIn, Bowman Riley is in Skipton, right? So it was not too far away then, I guess.
No, exactly. So it was the local firm, and I was quite fortunate in that I say local, they are nationwide. They've got 3 offices, Skipton, Leeds and London now. So it was kind of, it seems like the perfect fit, because they were kind of a local firm and kind of had that family feel, but also have had the kind of opportunities within the company to go into all different sectors and stuff. So you kind of ask the question, how was my job application and that process? And I think I've been quite fortunate, because I entered in when I was straight out of school, so I've never had to go through this the absolute washing machine that some people have to go through for interview processes and kind of applications. And hearing some stories, you just some people really get put through the paces, don't they?
It's difficult, but I mean, that's what's quite nice about the story, because I always find that while you're looking, what's interesting is that in the end, I joined an architectural practice that I really was fortunate to. It was an AJ 100 company, EPR Architects. They were really, really good for me. And, at the time during 2009, I felt a bit like the same. I was like, I can't believe how lucky I am. And I remember I had a part one salary of £20,000, and I thought I was stinking rich. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed with my friends to talk. I was like, don't worry about it. I'm only on a little bit of money. But back then I was like £20,000.
Yeah, that's it. It was like, I think I had the same when I got a salary straight out of school, and other students studying kind of law or finance, just normal students. It was kind of the tables turned. I had the money at university, and now how it changes, kind of thing.
I know, and the other thing as well, I can remember it was a really scary idea finding a job, and I respected anyone in the when I was studying architecture that was working full time. So I imagine there's a few people that were like, how did you get a job? How do you do it? How do you work? I mean, did you get all them questions of people just like, how do you do it? How are you in practice? I'm sure you must have got quite a few queries and wonderings, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think I can only really talk about my experience and my journey so far. I mean, it's only been 7 years. It's enough time to sort of to know where you are and if you're happy with your career or not, I guess. But I think if anyone was looking at how to get into it, I think it's hard if they were a bit older and sort of my age now. But I would say to someone who is maybe 18, I'd say get in as early as you can and do the apprenticeship route, because as I say, if you get in with the right practice, they'll support you the whole way. You'll be financially kind of better off in terms of your university fees and all of that, and you kind of get the best of both worlds.
I agree.
I say that, yeah, it's probably not the best of both worlds. It's because it's not the full student experience at all. Going to work on a Monday rather than a house party sort of thing is. Yeah.
Do you think that's always? It's like you said, the grass is always greener. Because I remember one year that my friend was in like the coolest dorms in first year, and I was in like a little bit of a boring dorm, and I used to stay around his all the time, and I used to be like, oh man, I so wish I was in that dorm. But then the funny thing is, then it's like that thing of then the next year I was effectively in that dorm, and you're like, oh, okay, it's all right. As in, you maybe, because when you're a student, you crave almost what you had. I was like, I would have loved the experience you had. I would have loved the money, even that, like, I know it's not a huge amount, but it's something, isn't it? Because full-time student, you were literally, I remember my dad supported me through, university as much as he could, but I used to work in Waitrose, which is like, I remember at the time working in Waitrose felt like a heck of a step up, and I had to learn a lot. And at first you're like, oh, I got to speak to people, and I remember being like, I've got to remember where the milk is and everything. This is so stressful.
Yeah.
And you kind of get over it now, but actually working, I've reckoned part-time while studying for me was so important because it definitely grounds you. And I do think, though, for me personally, the first year where I didn't work, you have them things of, and I'm going to be really honest with you here right now, is that I sometimes, we'd have Tuesdays studio and Wednesday and Thursday studio. And sometimes I would just do nothing until like Monday evening, like classic terrible student.
Yeah.
In my part 2, I sorted it out. But for first year of the degree course, undergrad, yeah, my dorm was in Camden in London, and I was babe out of the woods, as in I'd just come from Wales and I entered the big city. So
sounds like a recipe for success or disaster.
I was total disaster in a brilliant way, but I was lucky. I scraped, I got a 2-1, but when you look back for the amount of, it was this silly tour, and I always find it funny now because in my part 2, I did it the opposite way of I worked really hard, normal hours, and I didn't do much late nights. But in my part 1, I don't know whether it's that naive thing that you leave everything, or I did to the last minute, and I've got all of them stories. I don't know if you get the same. I was just like trying to print late at night and printers jamming and ink running low and freaking out. And I mean,
definitely. I think everyone's probably, well, whether it's right or wrong, but I think we've all done an all-nighter at university, sort of on deadline day, haven't we?
I think it happens, but I mean, I'm quite impressed the amount of time you've worked in architectural practice. But to give everyone an overview of Bowman Riley, can you let us know a little bit more? You touched upon it briefly, maybe the sectors that you've worked on, because imagine over 7 years you've seen totally different projects, right? I mean, it must be loads.
Well, that's it. I think another thing about starting when you know nothing is they want to try and mold you into the employee that they kind of need and they want. So I think it was a good opportunity for me to just kind of turn my hand to everything really in all sectors. So, I mean, I've pretty much worked in, well, I wouldn't say all of them, but quite a few of them. So kind of retail, residential, hospitality and kind of hotels. I mean, worked on the petroleum sector for a while, which is now very much the energy sector because that's gone under a bit of a rebrand, which is right. But so I think one of the benefits is that you get thrown in at the deep end. The support is definitely there if you need it, but if you can show willing and you're up for the challenge, they'll let you kind of just sort of get involved with all sorts, really.
Yeah, I had a similar experience of part 1. You literally jump in out, and I was like yourself. I was so grateful to get a job. I would have done any old role, to be honest with you. But when I joined, and my part one, and I guess this is where we both have a bit in common, is that I actually worked on a team which had an eclectic mix of stuff. And so within EPR Architects, the team I was on, which at the time the director was Richard Barrett, and there was a really great associate director who mentored me, and he's since retired. His name's Peter Fishwick, and they were absolutely fantastic. And we would work on overseas projects in Kuwait, which took a lot of the time, and that was more traditional architecture. But another part of what I did was I worked on a concept at the time for electric car charging stations.
Here we go.
Here we go. No, and I'm not making, you can go on the website, and if anyone's looking, you go to EPR Architects and you type in Eve Oasis. Okay. Then you will find all that stuff. And where it was cool is because it was really front end conceptual. For a part one, it was a dream. I was given Photoshops. I was given sketches to do, all that little fun stuff with part one. Yeah. I was absolutely loving it. 3D models. And, cause what was interesting is that at the time it was a Texas entrepreneur investor. And, he saw potential, as you're saying, because the petroleum markets moved to, electric car charging and sustainable solutions because we need to. Yeah. And he saw something in it. But obviously there's a lot of obstacles with it. And I remember the time there was what was called an EVSTAT. And I said it on one of my podcasts the other day, but basically on one of the renders, I felt really chuffed because there was a concept. There was like, well, everyone's going to charge their electric car in the EVSTAT, but what do? They need to go pop into a shop. And I was like, why don't we call it Stop and Shop? And
I like it.
Did you like it? Yeah, yeah. Here you go. So I was like, Stop and Shop. And then I remember at the time, because my director, Richard Barry, who's like, you are wasted here as a part one. And he was just like, you need to go out there and do it. But then it was taken. Yeah, but it was taken. So so we couldn't call it Stop and Shop. It had to be Shop and Go.
Oh, okay.
But I like Stop and Shop, to be honest. So that's my little foray into this sector. So look, I respect what you've done. It's really nice to be on an advert, but I was there in 2009. Okay. 2009.
You beat me to it.
Although mine weren't realized because, I mean, a lot of that was conceptual. And I remember even a few years ago talking about electric cars and stuff. I mean, Tesla, I always pronounce it wrong, but Tesla cars, they're super cool. And I remember, because I like video games and cyberpunk, and you kind of see the Tesla cars and you're like, this is so futuristic. But what I thought was awesome is you're actually working on these in a serious sense, as in, so these projects that you're working on now, and we'll touch upon it for anyone that hasn't seen the advert. In the advert, you're working on these models now. So we're actually rolling out car charging stations are a thing. They're actually going to be real. Am I going to see new stations in the future? And it's going to be charging cars.
I mean, definitely. I think something's changed. The change. There's been a change in the wind kind of thing, and I think just the announcement the other day about the petrol and diesel car ban is definitely going to speed that rate of change up.
It's crazy, isn't it? My dad works in the car industry, luckily on electric cars, but it's mental, isn't it? When you think it's not going to be a thing anymore.
No,
crazy.
Exactly. And I think it is just, it's kind of mind bending just how quickly we are expected to kind of transition hundreds of years of infrastructure kind of over from the kind of combustion engine and that whole, as I say, infrastructure that supports petroleum and petrol and diesel cars, and just it doesn't happen overnight, that change to electric and kind of cleaner energy. But it's just important that all of the big players are now starting to really wake up to that, and I think that's the way I would say it. And so for anyone that hasn't seen it already, why I was kind of bapping my horn around earlier saying that my mum's probably seen you on this advert is that you were featured in Shell's advert with working for Bowman Riley, talking about your journey as an architect. Mm-hmm. It was in an advert, which was great, by the way. You did really well. And I thought it was fantastic. is a bit of a surreal experience, sort of seeing yourself. See this. I'm usually, I don't know. I'm usually probably quite a shy person, and then when you've got a camera in your face, there's no escaping it.
So, how did that come about? As in, so did you go into office one day and your boss was like, "Will, how do you feel about going on TV?" And you were like, "Huh? Come again?"
Well, it was it's a very strange one again, because I think the thing is, these large energy companies, they have to try and let people know that they are trying to do good things, and they are trying to do positive projects. And I think part of that was trying to use the real people behind those projects. So instead of getting an actor in, let's actually get the people involved in these projects. Because I think one thing I found, I had my reservations at the start of it all, but one thing I've found since working kind of in this sector was everyone on the ground is an honest, good person wanting to try and do the best things. So I think it was really positive. But yeah, the call kind of came in saying, "Will, as you're designing the first EV charge hub for Shell, we'd like to use you as one of the segments," and kind of. I didn't know it at the time, but it seems like let the world know about my project, which is just crazy, really. Seeing it on TV and then thinking, "Oh, I need to go make sure I've got that door schedule sorted before the end of the week" is a bit weird.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I thought it was really insightful, and it was actually someone had brought it to my attention. What's interesting is that I'm more of in terms of a TV person, right? I go on my Netflix, I've got my Prime, and sometimes we're all guilty of we load TV up and everyone's watched Come Dine With Me on all this stuff, right? I'm not going to say I've not watched my fair share of Come Dine With Me, but I don't watch Coronation Street. I don't watch TV anymore. But what was interesting is that Advert came through even LinkedIn. It came through the Architectural Network. And what was quite nice is to see the reaction of people proud, to be involved. And I felt, from my perspective, what I quite liked is, of course, there was nice cameras and it was produced really well, but it was an actual architecture model. You are actually practicing. And like you said, it was really truthful. And I kind of, I agree with your point that you touched upon really of, talking about this change, talking about electric car charging, talking about sustainable solutions. It is good to see companies that have, a long-standing reputation within the energy sector doing the right thing. So I felt it was just all really good news. I enjoyed that. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think the change has been a long time coming, and I think it can happen faster than it probably is doing. But it's just encouraging to work on a project that is transitioning that infrastructure to today and one day in the future be kind of powered on renewable sources. And because you can't drive an electric car unless you can't drive a car powered by the sun or the wind farm or a kind of a tidal energy unless it's electric. So we need to kind of transition that infrastructure and at the same time kind of clean up where that energy is coming from. And it's going to be beneficial for generations to come, really.
I think it makes sense. And it's like, even with me, recycling is important. I think when I was younger, I'd be like, recycling, it's another person's problem. But we actually all need to go this way. And that's the point. Yeah. What I like about it is I don't want to go into the ins and outs of the past. What we're talking about is going forward and all these companies being responsible, going forward, doing the right thing. I think it's really, really great. But that aside, because I think we're both on the same page for that, and I'm sure a lot of people are listening. So what was it like having cameras in your face? It was like, and action. And you're like, okay, get the Revit model up. What was it like?
I mean, it's surreal because I am definitely not an actor. So, I mean, what you saw on the camera was all 100% me. I'm not going to lie, it definitely wasn't first take. It was probably 10th, if not more. I think it only really dawned on me just how much effort was kind of going into this and how important it was to them when I turned up to work, and there was 3 crew vans there, security, catering, just the whole shebang really. Which was very, very surreal, as I say.
I think it's brilliant, and good for your practice to get involved as well. I think it's great. It's a win-win for everyone. So if anyone hasn't checked it out, you can find the ad. It's on LinkedIn as well, isn't it? You can definitely check out. I think if you Google it as well,
you probably can't hide from it.
No, it's out there.
I think it'll be on YouTube, the Shell's own YouTube page.
And what does your family, girlfriend, and so forth think about you and the ads?
Yeah, I think, again, they were just, it's for someone who's not and never intended to go into kind of the TV industry or that world. It's just surreal seeing that person on the screen next to, after I'm a Celebrity or like the Liverpool game or something like that. It's a bit, it's bizarre, but very, very, exciting to be involved. As I say, it's a great opportunity.
I think that makes complete sense. Well, don't worry, the cameras are off now, and you can have a little breather. Sorry, I know I'm doing the podcast with you, but I think we're relaxed, isn't it? But what's the next step for you now, isn't it? We've had the moment, you're on the Shell ads, and life goes on, isn't it?
I know, but the thing is, I mean, I've been on national TV talking about my bird box that I designed when I was probably 10.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, come on, tell me about this bird box. I'm dying to know.
This is it. So I think Shell, as I say, they wanted a real story and real people. So they didn't come to me and say, well, Will, we want you to wear a roll neck and round glasses and roll up some drawings under your arm. They kind of said, what do you do on a day-to-day? What can you remember a time, the first kind of memory of you wanting to get into architecture or something and design? And I think again, my brain kind of went blank in that moment, and I sent a message to my, I can't believe I'm saying this on live podcasts as well, but I sent a message to my mum and said, well, can you remember a time when I said, Mum, I kind of want to be an architect? And she said, well, there was this one time when you were a bit younger, and your uncle asked you, well, you wanted a project to do in the summer, and your uncle said, oh, well, you can build me a bird box. And I said, oh yeah, that sounds like something interesting to do over the summer holidays. I'm sure everyone else is probably out playing football or something like that. But so I set to on this bird box, and kind of over-engineered this thing into. It was made from like 18mm marine plywood, and had like scalloped roof tiles, and completely overdid it. I don't think the birds ever went in it. It was built like a bunker. But yeah, I think it's quite funny knowing that however many, I think like 14 million people watched I'm a Celebrity now know about that bird box I built when I was 10 years old. Wow.
Well, don't worry. The amount of listeners on this podcast is nowhere near that. So you're in safe hands with the architecture community. I think it's brilliant. And so you mentioned that you are now doing the apprentice scheme, or the next steps effectively, because you did your part 1 part-time.
Yeah.
While working in the industry, you've got 7 years experience. And so now I can see, just looking from the LinkedIn, so you're going to South Bank. Oh yeah, you're bringing your wellies, aren't you?
This is
and
it.
so, and you've done, so you must have done as you started that, or you're halfway through or something like that, or how's that going?
I am, in my second year now, so kind of halfway through, the 3.5 year program. It's great. Again, it's nice that, the kind of architectural apprenticeship has come in time for me before I graduate, because, as I say, I did the undergrad part time as well, and this just feels a bit more structured and kind of focused on that part time balance, which is, I think, what the RIBA and kind of professional practice have really locked heads and said, right, well, how can we get the quality of our graduates coming out of university with like more real world and knowledge and technical skills, but at the same time we need to make sure that they're being challenged at university, and that balance, I'm sure, it'd be interesting to see what all the other apprentices kind of say about it. It's a very tricky one to get, because I think that I kind of see it as it moves in threes, doesn't it? There's your life, work commitments, and university life, and you can't have all three. You can only have two. And I think, and trying to make sure they all kind of spin all those plates at the same time can be tricky.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think I watched recently. There's a similar Australian graduate called Alvin, who's setting up he did a little YouTube channel, and the same thing. I think there was this theory called like the pans boiling, and it's the same thing you're on about. Of it's very hard to keeping track with your friends, keeping track with your university, keeping track with your job. And it is definitely tough, but the upside, I'd say, of what you've done is, I mean, look at the projects you've done, look at all the experience you've done. I personally think it's fantastic. And what I love is that actually all the stuff you're telling me, Bowman Riley, I think have been really supportive. It sounds like a really great environment. And hey, no one works somewhere for 7 years if they don't enjoy it. So I think that's a testament to you and for them. So
no, look, I'd agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you do well. I'm sure you'll sail through your part two. I'm not worried about it. You're going to have a few people asking you, for the next year or two, everyone's going to ask you about the same questions here. What was it like being on the interview? You're going to be the electric car charging guy for a little while.
Yeah. I think, it probably 5 minutes of fame. Oh, I remember you from that TV ad.
Yeah.
I don't think no one said that yet, and I don't think anyone probably will. So, yeah.
I think it's nice, and it'll be interesting to see in the future whether your career as well, because what's interesting, you've seen quite a lot of sectors, and obviously it's quite exciting being involved in sustainable energy, but it'll be really interesting to see what you do in the future and what kind of architecture you do at Bowman Riley, which is great. I
think right now, the energy sector definitely excites me, and just because it's going through, as we touched on before, that really interesting transition period, as we kind of move into that cleaner energy and electric cars and infrastructures and stuff. I think there's a lot of challenges still to overcome. I'm sure, well, there definitely are in all sorts of sectors and housing and things like that. But I think right now I'm definitely, I was going to say very energized.
Hey.
That's terrible.
Brilliant.
Yeah, excited. Let's go with that.
That's brilliant. I think, look, you've done really, really well. I think, and that's a really nice overview. So for anyone that's not checked out the ad, they can Google it online. William Gaines, Shell, Bowman Riley, check it out. So you're on LinkedIn if anyone wants to get in touch with you. I'm not quite sure if you're in the Architectural Social yet, but what I'll do is I'll send an invite there. So we'll post this. And if anyone wants to have a chat, or maybe if you're happy with it, I'm sure you will. If anyone's interested in renewable energy or working in that sector, I'm sure they can get in touch with you as well. And anyone that's at the South Bank University, they should definitely say hello and get in touch, right?
No, definitely. As I say, I think I don't pretend to be an expert in this industry yet, and I'm sure there's lots of people with really good ideas, and I'm open ears to all of those, really. So definitely get in touch if you're involved in the sector or kind of want to be involved, because I'll tell you everything I know, and hopefully they'll do the same.
Brilliant. I think, it's like it's the true thing of, I mean, I don't practice architecture anymore, but when I was in it, every day you're learning. It's not like you can complete it. And I guess in the sense now, when I don't directly do architecture, that's where I do take across from it in my approach of every day you learn, and every day I make mistakes. Every day you do things right, and you know you learn from it. And one of the interesting things about the sector you're involved in as well, I guess, is because in some senses it's in early stages, or there's exciting things happening, but it will be interesting to see how that organically grows, isn't it? And I imagine that there will be stuff like, because when we talked about when I was in industry, I was doing concepts, but what your project is to be built. And I'm sure that the more and more there are of these charging stations, I'm sure they'll go through a lot of changes. So definitely quite exciting.
It is, isn't it? Because I mean, we're all very familiar with what a petrol station looks like. There's an opportunity now to shake that up. And I think the first couple of designs and iterations you'll see come through probably won't be too wild, and there'll be a soft landing into this kind of technology. But I think I'd like to hope that as we kind of get familiar with electric cars and get used to the fact that it's just like charging your phone, and we're very used to that. So I think it would be interesting to just, as you say, see how the architecture evolves over the years, and I think it's exciting. Just like there's an opportunity now to people get a bit worried about the fact that, oh gosh, your car's going to take half an hour or 15 minutes to charge. But I see that as not as a kind of energy spokesperson here, but I kind of see that as an opportunity to do something else for 15 minutes, half an hour. And we need to make sure as kind of designers that building and those hubs can facilitate whatever it is you'd like to do. So whether that's kind of do a bit of work or do a bit of exercise, or I don't know, grab a coffee, do a bit of reading. I think that building, that petrol station from before is going to be so different going forward in the future, which is exciting.
Well, this is it. That's where my Stop and Shop was going to come into play. But I tell you what, actually, well, if you want to do Stop and Shop or Shop and Go, ask Bowman Riley. I don't want any royalties from it. Just, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, you can have it.
You've said it now, so we all know where it came from first.
You just go, Steve, when they make billions, Steve, listen to your own podcast, and they'll be like, damn. You're right. I joke around, but that was what the brief was at that time. It was because when your car's charging, the concept of the EVstat, I mean, you guys are further on to it, was that you're right. There's that breakout area. There's that space above. It's about what do you do there? Is it you have a coffee? Can people, charge their phones? Can they socialize?
This is it. I don't think, they're particularly new ideas, what we're trying to implement. I think what's exciting is we are now finally getting the opportunity to implement some of those concepts and stuff, as you say, from years ago. It's very exciting that those designs are now kind of coming to fruition. It's just exciting to see how what's the next evolution of those. going to look like as maybe the technology changes again? I mean, if we get flying cars, what does an electric charge hub for a flying car look like?
Yeah,
I think it never stops, does it? It's great.
This is it. So Corgan's a really good American architecture practice, and they did the concept for Uber Air. I think it was Uber. Yeah. Which I know what you mean. That's again one of them like say what moments. It's insane. I tell you what to leave it on as well is because there's Uber boats now in London as well. So I actually booked it the wrong one because I was like, okay, I'll go on there. It'll be a really nice scenic view of London. And I got on the Uber speeders, and true to their name, it blitzed it across the Thames. I was like, this isn't scenic. But I got to Westminster really fast. And I guess it's, what I like about what you're talking about earlier is all this stuff now, it's starting to challenge that preconception of what travel is. And to me, it's almost like the car, filling up your car with petrol is the only way. Or before it'd be like, oh, well, let's use diesel because it's a bit more sustainable. But when you're talking about, I think the best analogy you used was charging your phone and soon charging your car. But I love that. The idea of in 10 years, I'll be like, well, I'll be there. I'm going to be there a little bit late because I got about 20 minutes to charge the car, you know, but hey, it's more sustainable. I agree with it. I think it's the right way to go.
We'll get to a place where cars will be able to share battery. And if you've got, just like phones now, you can sort of split your battery between friends. But this is it. There's endless opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see where it heads and where we get to.
That's interesting, isn't it? So in the back of the bonnet, you'd have like a spare tire and a spare battery. And if I can see some arguments down the road of, Jeff, you didn't bring your spare battery. You're crazy. But
I can't get home.
Well, I'm sure there'll be like services which come out with and charge you up. That's a good business to get into now. Yeah.
Well, I think the AA are doing it these days. That's not an ad. Don't quote me.
I thought I was onto something then. I was like, we should totally set up a business and go around batteries ready to charge. But I think in terms of saving the planet, it's a small price to pay waiting 20 minutes. So
exactly.
Fantastic insight. Well, look. Well, again, you're available on LinkedIn. We'll get you into social as well. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit more about your career. And it's always really interesting to hear from people that have done it in a little bit of a different way. And, to frankly talk about the strengths and weaknesses, talk about, how it feels sometimes to be on the other side of the fence. You weren't in the dorms full time, but look at all this experience you've got. I think it's really nice to hear. And well done on the advert, and we'll see you next time. You'll have to top it now. I don't know what you're going to do from there. You're going to have to round 2, isn't it?
Is it downhill from here? Hopefully not.
No, I'm sure it gets all exciting. It gets exciting from you. The projects that you're working on at Bowman Riley, they won't stop. And
exactly.
And I think it's been a fantastic insight for everyone to see. So thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's been great.
No worries. Well, okay. Speak soon.
Bye.